Welcome to the web-based training modules of National AgrAbility Project. My name is Samuel Matthew. This module introduces you to the assessments for customers in vocational rehabilitation. This is an independent module. Other modules regarding vocational rehabilitation services with reference to AgrAbility customers are available to view and download at the National AgrAbility Project website www.agrability.org. Any questions can be directed to the email address or phone number shown on the last slide of this presentation. Please take a moment to read the sentence on the left side of your screen now. If you need a transcript of the presentation due to a hearing impairment, you may please contact bng@ecn.purdue.edu or call toll-free 1-800-825-4264 for assistance. If you want to advance the slides, you can see a slide bar at the bottom, and using your mouse you will be able to advance as you need through the slides faster. In this training module, you may hear vocational rehabilitation as being mentioned, VR or Voc Rehab, and the VR counselor may be referred to as VRC or the counselor. In each state, VR services are offered under an agency with a different name, but you can find the information in the state government website by searching the phrase vocational rehabilitation. The module objectives are as follows. At the end of the module, you will be able to describe the type of assessments done by VR, list typical assessments authorized by VR, describe customer and VR responsibilities with regard to VR assessments. Why assessments are done by VR? Assessments or evaluations may be done by VR for customers at various stages of the VR process. To determine eligibility during initial application process when customer records are not available or adequate, assessments may be done. To determine services required before preparing individualized plan for employment. Also to determine additional services before IPE amendment, or to follow up on services provided. VR counselor determines if an evaluation or assessment is required. The vendor to conduct the assessment may be chosen by the customer. Who conducts assessments? The VR counselor does not conduct any assessments personally, as they are not qualified to conduct the specialized assessments for AT or functional abilities. Approved vendors such as AT professionals, AgrAbility staff, licensed psychologists registered with VR are authorized by VR to conduct the assessments and provide reports. VR may have current approved rates for the evaluations, and the authorization amount will depend on these rates for those quoted by the vendor. VR employed rehabilitation engineers and technicians or AT professionals may conduct assessment in some states. Typical assessments done by VR. For the customers who need to drive as a part of their employment goal, VR may authorize assessment for eligibility to apply for driver's license. This may be required by customers with amputation, cerebral palsy, low vision, or other disabilities that may hinder their ability to drive. For those customers who need to drive and where vehicle modifications are appropriate, VR will authorize to assess the required modifications on their vehicle. Restrictions apply in terms of the type of vehicle and its conditions. This may mean the vehicle lifts and controls, low vision enhancements, etc. For those customers who need home modifications, so that it is required for the customer to function regularly, home modifications may be authorized. Also, IQ tests, vocational aptitude, behavioral issues, and other appropriate psychological evaluations may be done by VR counselors, may be authorized by VR counselors. Also, 80 assessments for vision and hearing, if appropriate, will be authorized by the counselor. Now let us look at the customer responsibilities. The customer responsibilities are to choose the vendor and inform the VRC. The customer can suggest any vendor and the VRC will review and determine if the vendor is appropriate. Usually the VRC is accommodating customer preferences. Customer needs to keep appointments for evaluations and assessments. Also, the customer needs to follow instructions and participate as required by vendor during assessments. Also, the customer needs to inform changes to health situations, income, address, etc. to VR. Basically, the customer has to be actively involved in the process so that assessments can move forward and the customer can receive services. VR responsibilities include providing guidance and counseling, providing referrals to other services as required, and also to authorize the services for assessments in a timely manner. The VRC is also supposed to respond to customer queries promptly. Also, the VRC or the counselor can provide a copy of the assessment reports to the customer if requested. Cautionary notes. It's important to understand how VR system works with respect to conducting assessments. Unless and until an assessment is approved and authorization for the same is issued from VR, customer should not take action. Even if discussions are over, it is important to have authorizations from VR. VR will only pay for the approved vendor. There may be a delay if the vendor who is supposed to do an assessment is not registered with the state, and that process has to be completed before authorizations can be provided. Also, when assessments are conducted, if changes are required in terms of needs, in terms of vendor, those should be discussed and approval has to be got from VR before the customer initiates those changes. The customer feels that the VR decision about services are not appropriate and or justified. The decisions can be appealed at 3 levels. First is the office supervisor level. The supervisor meets with the customer to review the IPE and determine if any facts are not taken into account. IPE is not prepared and the assessment is done previous to that. At that time also the customer can appeal to the VR supervisor. The supervisor's decision is not acceptable. Customer can appeal and the VR office will provide or facilitate an independent mediator. If that mediator's decision after hearing the customer and the VR case is not acceptable to the customer is free to contact Client Assistance Program, which is a state agency, independent state agency authorized to hear VR customer grievances. Another training module on CAP is available at the VR services training modules in the National AgrAbility Project website, and hence it is not covered here. You may refer to that module for further understanding of the CAP. This is the end of the VR assessment module. Please feel free to contact us at the displayed email address on this slide or the toll-free number to provide suggestions, feedback, or comments. Thanks for your time. Hope this module has been helpful in enhancing your understanding of the assessments done by VR.